If you have seen my channel recently, you have probably seen these two mods. Those have been designed specifically for multipen, and it took quite a long time to get the design right. I don't think it's perfect, by no means, but it's a great starting position. So the reason why I have been modding so much for multipen is that people have been reporting multipen to be very frustrating when recording and when practicing. So I think that that's because we are using tools that are not very well suited for the task at hand, in this case spinning with various pens which are interacting with one another. It's kind of similar to doing power tricks with an MX. It can be done, but it is more difficult, it's more frustrating, and it is better done once you actually know how to do the tricks. If you are just learning, or imagine if power tricks didn't even exist and you only had an MX, it would be very difficult for you to actually think that that kind of tricks are possible. So my idea was to design something that made discovering tricks easier, practicing more enjoyable, and just recording also more enjoyable. The most important thing for multipen is that you have to take into account that the pens are interacting with one another, so they can collide, and you can use that to your advantage. But for that you have to design the pens properly. There are some gimmicks that you can use, like using magnets, which I have done, and it's quite fun, but I don't think it has a lot of potential. It's very limited in the kind of tricks that you can use, and also on the range of the magnets. They don't work super well. Another gimmick that you can use is doing a very unbalanced pen, because one of the problems with multipen is that the pens collide. So maybe if you can put all the pen into one side of your hand and something like that, maybe that's interesting. Kay did a video on a very unbalanced pen, not for multipen, but something along those lines, but maybe it has some potential. One of the things that I realized quickly is that the specs of the pen have to be closer to the very long modes that we use in regular pen spinning, like Isaac Emboss. Isaac Emboss seems like a very good example of what we want to do, but with a few different things. So for example, my current pens are around 20 grams, between 18 and 20, and the length is between 24.5 centimeters each. About other pen specs, the weight, of course, is less noticeable. For example, Isaac Emboss feels quite heavy in terms of momentum, of course, but in multipen, that's not as noticeable. For example, my pens feel more like a KT or a Hashkomsa more than actually like one of these huge power sticks. So I think that even more weight or a bit more length can be added, but I think that should be done after we know more about multipen. I think that a lot of weight or a lot of length in the beginning is probably going to hinder the development. And another thing that was quickly obvious is that making them a bit thicker was going to make things easier. I think that Giotto is too much, but around the thickness of an emboss was also working very well for me. So the thing that worked the best for the pen interactions now seems very obvious to me, but in the beginning it wasn't, is basically the pen texture or the pen grip. Like, to make an analogy with regular pen spinning, imagine spinning a pen and your fingers are very dry. So you don't have hand moisturizing, it's a very dry climate, and the pen is constantly slipping in your fingers. So you don't have much control over the pen and you're going to be failing constantly. Well, that's multipen if you don't have pens with grip. Because it's not that the pen is going to slip between your fingers, but one pen is going to slip with the other. So I tried many things. I tried various types of silicone, I tried a few things, and then I tried also just regular pen modding materials. The thing that worked the best was the factice barrel. Factice barrel is kind of like an emboss, slightly thinner, and has the texture of a tool barrel, so it's a bit grippy, not super flexible, not super soft, like for example a Stalogy, but not as stiff as a Caco Green, for example, which is not grippy but rather chalky. So those were the things that worked the best, and those are the mods that I'm going to show here. The uses of grip in the pen have some limitations. The limitation is that the more grip that you have, it's easier to spin the pens in some sense, but it also makes filming and just the spinning smoothly more difficult. Because it's kind of like there are some tricks that can only be done only be done consistently, in my opinion at least, with the silicone pens. Like for example, these kind of bounces or juggling with the two pens, those require a lot of friction between the two pens. So if you are doing something like that, of course you want to use something along the lines of the silicone pen. It was inspired by devil sticks, as many people have pointed out, but devil sticks, I wanted to buy a pair, but I wasn't able to find them locally. But I believe that mostly they are made of rubber and it's like solid, it's not hollow, so it's going to be very weighty. Also, there are like a lot of complications when modding with silicone. You are going to see that in my tutorial. I'm going to upload a tutorial of that pen, and you will see that you have to do a lot of things to make it feel like a regular pen mod and not just a huge stick which has a lot of weight and doesn't really have a lot of momentum. There are other ideas that I wanted to try, but I didn't in the end. For example, the heat shrink tubes, which are made of polyolefin, and those are quite easy to put. Just you have to put them over the barrel and then heat them with a heat gun or a lighter. They have the problem of not sticking very well to the underlying barrel unless they are the variety which also has glue, and they also don't have much grip between one another, so that's not the best. And just to conclude of what I found on all of my pen modding adventures, I found that when the pens absorb a bit of the impact when colliding, that makes the tricks easier to control. That's one of the best things about the silicone pens, that they don't really bounce around. I found that the silicone was too grippy for regular filming, but it was very good for practicing. And on the other hand, the factice barrels were very good for filming, but not the best for practicing or trying to find new tricks. And aside of those two materials, I don't think that there's many more readily available for the public to really mod more. I think that if you want something else, you probably need some of the pen making companies to make just for pen spinning alone. So if anybody makes them and likes them or has some feedback, please let me know. And yeah, thank you. See you soon.